One of the most common stumbling blocks when we are learning to speak our truth is wrestling with the question am I being assertive? Is this when I'm supposed to talk? Or is this me just being needy? Is this unnecessary? Am I just complaining? And in this video, I want to break down the ways to know the difference and the number one trick for knowing which camp we're in. But before we jump in, I do want to introduce myself. I'm Coach Amanda, also known as your friend with benefits, because on this channel, we dissect those day-to-day things that are tripping us up, challenging us, keeping us stuck, keeping us from feeling like we're moving forward, and that we're talking about at coffee with our friends and colleagues. So if you like my style of coaching and you want to learn more about what it looks like to work directly with me, be sure you check out the link below. You can get all the details. You can get set up with a call with me where we can go over all of the options for that. And if there's anything in this video that you found helpful, be sure that you like and subscribe to keep the content coming and to make sure the word is getting out to others. So I just wanted to make this video today because so many of my clients are doing their work, they're showing up for themselves, they are practicing occupying their space in a room, setting boundaries, speaking their truth, and they find themselves running into this question like, I wanted to speak up, but then I just felt like maybe I'm just complaining, maybe I'm just being needy. Like, I don't know, like, am I just being mean by pointing out that this person isn't doing this well? And there's a lot of head stuff, and I get it. I can totally relate to that. Before I had really found my voice, and as I was learning to be in my body and be in my authenticity and feel my value in a room, I wrestled with all of this, and it felt like it took a seemingly simple idea of expression and just complicated it. And there was just so much extra internal stuff over that. So I just wanted to make this video so that we would know how to know, right? So let's start by looking at the difference between being assertive and then what we're just gonna label kind of unnecessary stuff, right? For lack of a better word, because it all just kind of goes under that category. So we're gonna have the assertive and then what's kind of just unnecessary. Like maybe I didn't need to say that, or maybe I was just being needy. We're just gonna call it the unnecessary. So let's just start from the beginning. Number one, if we are being assertive, it's not the same as confrontation, okay? Assertive has an element of addressing, okay? It's not necessarily angry or judgmental. It just has an element of addressing, of being in our body and being willing to really enter into a situation and address it. And this can feel really foreign to some of us who maybe have an avoidance or a kind of a pullback history where it feels kind of uncomfortable, and maybe I should just leave it unsaid, and who am I to say something? And I mean, they probably know better. And if you're like me and you had that kind of a tendency, well, if I can't say something nice, we're not supposed to say it at all. And you kind of have this shrink pattern, all of a sudden this kind of like stepping forward, it feels really foreign in our body. A body that's accustomed to shrinking down and pulling back is going to feel uncomfortable stepping up and opening up. So with that discomfort in our body paired with discomfort in our like emotions, and our brain might be going fast, right? We might feel like, sometimes it can be paralyzing. We might just shut down, and then we feel awkward about that. Or we can get really wrapped in our emotions and feel like we've overshared. So as a foundation here, as we start, we are just going to recognize that assertiveness is all based in addressing. And we're going to define addressing as this stepping in and like opening ourselves, being in our body, and like being in this situation. So on the other hand, in contrast, one of the ways we can know if something is unnecessary is if it is complaining. If it is just like an emotional thing where I want to get out of the situation I'm in and go tell someone who's not even involved or who has no authority to really change it, and I just want to talk about how it all went wrong and what this person did or did not do, or what opportunity I was given or not given, or how I felt like it should have went, but nobody would listen to me anyway. We look at assertive as I want to address the situation and put myself in it and kind of be here to help it move forward. And the other one is like, I want to shrink back and I'm going to go tell someone who can't change anything about it so that I have this emotional release to get it out of my body. A second way, so that's the first way we can tell, am I actually addressing, or am I just leaving the situation, which is actually just reinforcing my old pattern, right? I'm leaving the situation to go complain about the situation to someone who has no authority to change the situation. The second thing, which just plays right off of the first, as you're going to find as we walk through these, the second thing is that assertiveness is solution oriented. So when I get the signal from my body, my emotions, my psyche that like something's off, like whatever just happened here, something's leaving me unsettled. I don't like this. I don't like either what did or didn't happen. I don't like the direction it's going. I don't really care for this idea that's being proposed. In a solution-oriented mindset, once again, we're stepping in, okay? We're leaning into the situation and the players involved in the situation, and we're addressing for the sake of like closure of navigating. Like, it's going in this direction. I don't know how I feel about that. I would like to suggest that we consider an alternate route, or maybe we even say something like, I don't know that I have the answer. However, I am uncomfortable with the current direction for these specific reasons. And we are looking for a solution. The entire idea of using our voice is for the intention of solution. Now, this is important to contrast with, I'm not using my voice so that they'll go my way. That because I spoke up, everybody should just listen to me, and the fact that they didn't adopt my idea means I'm just not going to speak anymore. Nobody listens anyways, okay? That's not solution oriented. Solution oriented says, I'm going to use my voice to start a conversation that leads to what I'm perceiving as a healthier outcome. I have to go first, guys. This is a self-leadership exercise. We have to say, I'm willing to go first in the conversation. That doesn't mean that all my suggestions must be adopted. It has much less to do with my suggestions and a whole lot more to do with my voice and my willingness to begin a different conversation if I don't feel comfortable in the way the current conversation is going. Now, a contrast to that is, am I just venting, right? Am I just leaving the room and they don't listen to me anyways, and I tried to tell them and they're not listening, and nobody in those boardrooms ever listens anyways. They already have their own ideas, and I'm just out here, once again, kind of like we already touched on. I just want to let the emotion out of my body, and in a sense, I am, when I check in with myself, feeding a victim mentality. And no judgment, right? Because when we've been in a pattern of feeling like we're the person who's walked on, when we probably have a lot of life experiences where we have been treated as inferior or not valued, that sense of like, look, I'm a victim, it feels almost comfortable in our body, which is just a really interesting way of recognizing how our patterns become embodied in our cells. And then we almost start to look for ways to feed that. Now, not on purpose, right? That's not what we're doing, because this video is all about how do we start breaking that up. But we need to check in when we're looking between what's assertive and what's unnecessary. The unnecessary is just venting outside of the situation to get ourselves back into a familiar state. So if assertive is unfamiliar, victim can feel familiar, okay? Doesn't mean that we necessarily would pick that if we were aware of it. It's our body. Like, it's like, oh, if I can go out and someone's like, yeah, I can see that, and they really should treat you better, and you have great ideas, right? And this part, that old story kind of gets watered and fertilized a little bit because we've lived in a state of people kind of walking on us, and we have been the victim before. It just feels familiar, and our body just likes familiar. So that's where we can kind of know assertive versus unnecessary. Is what am I looking for? A solution or like a warm, fuzzy feeling? Okay. So next up, when we're looking at what is assertive versus what's just kind of unnecessary, we begin to look at our ability to respond. So when I'm being assertive, I am exercising my ability to respond. I'm in this situation. Within me, I possess an ability to respond, and I am now exercising the fullness of that ability. So my ability to respond is my responsibility. So I'm in this situation. I know that I possess an ability to respond, and I'm exercising that with the responsibility of responding. Versus in an unnecessary way, if I were just kind of impulsive and I'm not exercising my ability to respond, I'm in reaction versus response. So in assertiveness, I am in response, and in unnecessary would fall reaction. So on this side, I am once again putting myself intentionally into the situation with the people who are a part of the situation, and I'm exercising the ability within me, which kind of plays on our last differentiation, right? It's this making sure that I'm solution oriented. Something about this is off. Maybe I just need to clarify. Maybe I actually need to address. Maybe I'm looking for a different solution. But I'm exercising my responsibility by speaking up, staying in the setting, and addressing it with the people involved. Versus going into reaction, nobody ever listens, this whole thing's been a disaster since the beginning, telling my coworkers about it, storming out to my boss, whatever that looks like. When there's a lot of emotional charge that's unhindered, we're in reaction. Very important on this step to understand that I can be emotionally experiencing something And I can be recognizing that as my signal to exercise my ability to respond. I might be a little activated. I might be feeling a little disrespected. I might be feeling disregarded. And those are going to have an emotional charge to them, very likely. However, in assertiveness, I'm channeling that towards an ability to respond. I'm recognizing it and I'm saying, I have an ability to respond to this signal. This signal is saying something is off, and I have the full ability to respond to that. Now, if I just have this pumping through my body and I start reacting and I storm out of the meeting, that's unnecessary, okay? Or maybe some of you are like, I wouldn't do that at all. Another emotional reaction would be just sitting here, crossing my arms, kind of, I'm out, like just staring at the floor, waiting for this meeting to end because nobody ever listens to me anyway, and I don't know why they even have me on this board, and I'm the one really trying here, but nobody wants to hear it from me. So notice our emotional reaction can send us in an outburst or an in-pull. Neither of those is contributing any tangible value to the situation at hand. So we want to understand that we can both have an emotional experience and channel that in a solution-oriented way or a reactive way. Now, you've probably caught on. Our next criteria for recognizing whether something is assertive or if it is just unnecessary is objective versus subjective. And this is a really big one, guys. I want you to really, really catch this because it's actually played through all of our criteria so far. When we are assertive, we are focused on the objective. In this situation, this thing seems off. I'm curious if we can look at other options. Something is telling me we need to take a second look at X. I'm uncomfortable with Y. Can you please expound on Z? Or we give specific examples. At this point, when I shared this thing, I felt really disregarded when X happened. I felt that the statistics that I brought to the table were not accurately weighed when we were discussing topic Z, right? So we're staying very objective. It is situation oriented with all the appropriate players, and we're speaking to the elements that made the situation what they were. Now, in contrast, what is unnecessary is the subjective. This is what happens. Every time I talk, you just talk over me. Or we're out in another room and saying, you know, that's what he does. He just talks over everybody and nobody listens anyway. And I think that they're just disrespecting me and I don't think that they even care. Notice how it's very subjective. None of that is objective facts. That's introducing the subjective, the character, the, well, one could tell when he walked out of the room that he didn't want to listen to me anymore. We actually, on the objective, we just have someone who walked out of the room. And it was at this point that so-and-so walked out of the room. Can I get some clarification? Okay. Objectively, someone walked out of the room. If we're stuck in the subjective, we're saying because he doesn't care about anyone else's ideas, or he is too busy for us, or she has more important things to do, or we don't matter to them. Really check in with yourself because these two can get blurred really easily, because what can happen is because we're having the emotional experience, I did feel disrespected. I did feel disregarded. Because that's a real experience, it can be really easy to start infusing our language with subjectives. So when we're being assertive, we're being proactive, we're stepping in, taking the reins, and saying X, Y, and Z happened. And the effect of that was Q, R, and S are still or maybe still in need of a solution. Can we consider some sort of bridge for this gap? Okay, that is objective. Subjective is, well, if people are going to walk out in the meeting and just disregard the ideas of other people, we're never going to get anywhere. Very subjective. We're never going to get anywhere. That's not objective. If people are just walking out of the meetings because they disregard, subjective. So an assertive approach sticks to objective occurrences, and it becomes, these subjectives are what become very unnecessary. So finally, with this question of, am I just being assertive or am I complaining? Was it really necessary? Should I have said that? Was I just being mean? Is this me being needy? One of the number one ways to tell, which is a culmination of everything that we just covered. The number one way to tell if it is us being assertive or if we're just being mean, because that's how we can feel for those of us who feel like addressing means confronting, okay? We want to soften the language, and that's where the responsibility comes in. Well, it just feels like confrontation. I'm not good at confrontation, and whoa, we need to time out on the words. Time out on the words, because responsibility is different than confrontation. When we put it in the context of being solution-oriented, being objective, addressing for the sake of closure, and keeping the conversation within the players who have an authority to change the situation. So one of the number one ways to tell, as we wrap up, is, am I addressing a circumstance or attacking a character? Am I addressing a challenge or attacking someone's character? Okay. When we are assertive, we are taking a leadership role. We're stepping in, we're exercising our ability to respond, we're staying objective, and we're talking to the appropriate players. When things are unnecessary, we are complaining outside of the situation. We've shrunk back. We did not use our voice. We're looking for the warm, fuzzy, emotional hug of being recognized that someone hurt us. We're in an emotional reaction that's either impulsively going external, or we're curling in and internalizing and shutting down and discrediting all of our own ideas and see, why do I even do this anyways? We start telling a story in the subjective about how we're not valued, how they're more important, how our voice doesn't matter, how this is how it always goes. We're getting wrapped up in a subjective. We are becoming passive rather than leaders, and we're starting to attack a character. Now, whether that character is of another or of ourself. Oh, they always do this, and they don't respect people that work below them, and they don't care about their team. Or I always do this. I try to speak up, and then I just get walked on. Or I'm always looked over. Or I don't get the promotions. Or he doesn't care about me. Or she never liked me anyway. Right? We're attacking character. So we have addressing a circumstance, attacking a character, whether it's someone else's or ours. These become very, very helpful steps when we're practicing our assertiveness. So one more time, I know we've been over it a lot, but because so many people, this is so new when we are coming into our own, there's a lot of things going on. Not only are we learning to put ourselves in circumstances that we may not have before, We're actively trying to learn how to hold our body in a way that supports us. We're trying to mentally engage so we can contribute. And now we're tasked with like speaking our truth when something feels a little off, and like having simultaneously the recognition in our body, the courage to speak up. And now we're trying to learn the appropriate way to do that so we stay in assertiveness versus what we may have labeled as confrontational in our past. It's a lot to manage. So when we have some go-tos that give us some framework and some structure, and we've thought about them in advance, we've thought about, am I addressing? Am I solution oriented? Am I exercising my ability to respond? Am I speaking to the objective? And am I addressing an actual circumstance versus an attacking some kind of character? When we think, these 5 things, we can almost tick them off in our mind, right? And we've thought about them ahead of time. We have this framework to keep us on track and keep us building those assertion muscles. And it takes some practice. And we're going to have those times where we might walk out feeling like we didn't get the 100%. We didn't get the A on the asserting ourselves test. And that's okay, because the A is not the point, remember? We're in the gym. If we went into the gym and we just said, I want to bench press 300 pounds, when we've never been willing to pick up the 20-pound weights before, we're not going to do well with the 300 pounds. We have to be willing to pick up the 20-pounders, then the 30s, then the 40s, then the 80s, and so on up before we can get to that place. So it's really important that we're giving ourselves credit for putting in the reps instead of beating ourselves up when it doesn't go 100% for us. And this is an action that we take and we practice and practice, and soon enough we start walking in that victory. We're really occupying our space. We know who we are in our body. We've learned some things that work for us and some things that we'd like to refine. And so we grow. It's how it goes. So if this video was helpful for you, if there's any specific piece that really stood out, or maybe it brought up some more questions for you, be sure you, once again, you leave us a comment. And if there's other things that you found in your own walk with learning to speak your truth and be assertive that you would like to see addressed on the channel, make sure you drop them there as well. And we'll see what we can do about getting you some content and connecting. Until next time.